Hey guys, welcome to another Rivers Art Colors. My name is Nick Rivers, and today I'm getting into coloring Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman. Um, Here I am just using my magic wand tool to start putting the flats down. And the line work for this one, I kind of went, it's sort of the movie inspired costume. But it's not exact though. It's more of a simplified version because that costume is really detailed, hyper detailed, and it's kind of difficult to draw. So I kind of skimped out a little bit on it, admittedly, but um, I think I got the point across of what I was trying to do with it. Really on the when you see the lower half, that's where I took the most liberties in the lines in a suit. And you can see right here, I thought I inked it well, but I missed a couple spots, so I kind of had to go back in and drop some more blacks in there to give it some more dimension, um, so it's not so two-dimensional. Make it pop a little bit. I almost went with the more traditional look for Aquaman for the line art for this. But this particular costume, I've been seeing it over and over again in the ads for Justice League, and it's really growing on me. So yeah, I thought I'd go ahead and kind of challenge myself a little bit and do something a little bit more intricate. I will say though, um, this is kind of a good example why some of the characters' costumes are more simplified when you look at them in the comic versus the movie versions. And it's just something to expect. In the you're dealing with more, texture. You have to sell the character. You have to sell um, their costume in these movies. So oftentimes these characters with very simplistic suits in the comics, they have to do something to sell the character more in real space. So it gets more ornamental, it gets more um, intricate, and they have to kind of tell a story with the costume. So by making Aquaman's costume look more ceremonial, and adding all these ornate things to it, to kind of tell a history of the characters, it's necessary. Where I feel like you don't need to do that as much in the comic world, and also, just the practicalness of having to draw these characters panel by panel, several times in one issue. It's you need all the shortcuts you can get with drawing the character. So I notice myself when I've created characters that have more design to them. Oh my God, I almost hate drawing them within the continuity of the story because there's so many little details and so many details you can forget too. You can miss one detail from one panel and then go to the next and be like, oh shoot, I forgot, about whatever that detail might be. And it's so when you look at the original Aquaman with his orange kind of fish scale shirt and big A buckle and green, tights. That's simple to draw versus all of this. Um, but also, you see throughout the years the history of this character is. You've seen him go through many different iterations and different evolutions, and um, I think that's great. I think that's one of the great things about having these characters that have been around so long. You can evolve them in some respect. But you always have to be careful about what you choose to evolve. And I think Aquaman is one of those characters where they have a lot of license to change things. He's not always been a fan favorite character, so this kind of, I don't know, it looks like they're going for almost a surfer dude kind of routine with this with Jason Momoa's Aquaman. Um, which I mean, it might work out pretty well. It remains to be seen, but I think again, I think that audiences and even some of our more purist comic book fans will be okay with that change. Um, I never seen him that way. In all the Aquaman that I've read, I've never pictured him that way. I've always kind of pictured him as a one of the more somber members of the Justice League, um, because he's man. I remember this one series I read, JLA series I read, where they kind of explain that he feels very caught in between the middle of two worlds, being half human and half Atlantean. So um, he's got a lot of weight to bear on his shoulders because of that, and because he's the king of Atlantis. So I kind of because of that, I've always kind of pictured him as more of a somber character. But bringing some levity to his character in the movie, I can see that. Plus, I mean, the DC uh, cinematic universe is already full of too many somber characters. So, um, having a more lighthearted take on Aquaman is not a bad idea. Now, with my flats all laid out, and I've kind of airbrushed in, my highlights for the muscles and all that. I'm going in and just doing simple um, brush strokes to suggest the light reflecting off of his armor. It's actually this whole coloring process for this video. I was kind of intimidated once I finished the line art for it, because I thought I'm like, oh man, this is going to take forever to color, but it went by surprisingly quick. I think I might have spent maybe 2 hours rendering this out, um, maybe a little less, which is not bad for a piece like this. Um, it helps that there's not a lot of color separations in this. It's mostly just the gold, and the flesh tones in the hair. So not too much going on with it. Um, I definitely want to give this version of Aquaman another shot as far as illustrating it. And I was I think I've spent, I don't know, I'm working on the next video that I upload. You'll see I probably spent more time working on that character drawing than any of the ones that I've posted, but um, this one is probably close runner-up as far as spending time penciling it out and inking it. I was a little iffy about certain spots in this drawing, but for the most part, it turned out how I wanted it to turn out. What you'll see coming up next, after I've got my, I'm putting in my highlights there with the scales, just following my brush strokes, trying to keep it as uniform as I can, but it's not perfect, but it works. Um, it's probably my favorite part of this whole process, was doing this part, because I didn't intend to color it this way. It's just kind of playing around, doing whatever works. Um, you'll see here in a moment, with my whenever I color like a gold surface, I tend to work dark to light, and I realize I put my flats are kind of light. They're closer to the mid-tone I wanted, so I just went in and darkened it real quick under my adjustments, and there we go, and selected the same color that I had for the flats to go back in and put the mid-tone in. I have two more Justice League Justice League member drawings that I want to do to kind of complete this whole series of character illustrations that I've done. Like I said in the last video, these are kind of more or less my reference guide to when I draw these characters again. Um, it's something that I've neglected to do for so long, is really to kind of create, you know, my character guide, my character reference sheet for some of the characters that I love to draw, like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, so on and so forth. And um, since I'm doing a lot more pinup work now, and I'm doing a lot more fan art now, I figured I'd go ahead and start doing that. Um, as you'll see in another video I'll post here soon, they definitely come in handy as a reference point, both in the line work and when I'm doing the colors. You know, if let's say I draw Aquaman again and I've got him in some kind of heroic pose, I can just kind of look at this, and not that I won't change things down the line as far as how my approach to drawing him, but it's cool to have a guide there that's like, okay, this is how I've drawn him before. I'm gonna keep such and such, you know, recognizable and similar, but okay, I might improve on this area, I might improve on that area. That's what these character guides are pretty good for. Um, it's it's something that I did when I would create characters for Tyrannosaurus Rex or for the new breed, um, and I had a lot of fun doing it with brand new characters, and I'm having fun doing it with these established characters that have been around for way longer than I've been around. You know, stood the test of time. Um, I think with what we're seeing, I mean, if Justice League ends up being a huge success, I think that'll breathe a lot more new life into Aquaman, he's a character who's been very he's been kind of the butt of a lot of jokes as far as the main DC heroes go. So maybe we'll see a reversal of that. Who knows? Um, but I'm always open to seeing new interpretations of old characters that I grew up with, and this is one of them. I just remembered the name of that Aquaman series that I read. It's that new 52 run called Aquaman the Trench, um, by Jeff Johns and Ivan Rise, or Rays or Rise. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's a fantastic artist. His line work is just insane. But it's so good. It's the first Aquaman story I read where it was kind of like it was almost like a horror movie with these piranha type creatures that was giving Aquaman a hard time. um, that was I think the trench is going to be in the Aquaman movie. I'm not for sure. I thought I heard something about that, but um, I highly recommend it if you want to get into the character. Like I said, I'm not a huge Aquaman fan, so I can't give you a whole lot of suggestions on that, but um, I definitely thoroughly enjoyed that series. I would recommend it um, big time. There's even there's even a surprising amount of comedy in there. It's the one of the things that sold me on the series. So when I was read issue number one, they've got Arthur walking into some seafood restaurant, and like everyone in the joint, he's like in his full Aquaman gear. He walks into the seafood restaurant, and everyone looks over at him and they go, "Aquaman here? What the hell is he doing here? This is a seafood restaurant." And then one of the like guys behind the counter is like, "What are we supposed to do?" And then he tells the waiter, "Go ahead, go see what he wants." And then there's this big like back and forth between the waitress and Aquaman, saying like, "You're, you know, what are you doing here? What would you like?" And um, Aquaman goes, "I'll have the fish and chips," and everyone just stops and they're like, "What? You can't have fish and chips." And Aquaman's like, "Why not?" "Because you talk to fish." And that kind of remind me of the part in the Justice League trailer where they've got Batfleck going, "So I hear you talk to fish," and he does that little head turn and smirk. Um, but it's in this story, Aquaman is just like shaking his head the whole time. Like, it doesn't work that way. And so they run with the idea of, they kind of poke fun at some of the more cornball aspects of the character, while at the same time having him be a badass in the context of the story. But I highly recommend you pick it up. They've got the hardcover out there for under $25, so it's a good read. Um, but getting back to the artwork here, getting back to the drawing here, just kind of putting in the finishing touches. I've got I try to, if you notice, I try to attack the larger color separations first. Um, So I did like all the green rendering. I always do, for some reason, I always do the flesh tones first. For some reason, my eye kind of adjusts better to what everything else, the color tone I should pick on everything else once the skin tone is picked. Um, but now that the green's all rendered out and going in and putting in the details with the gold, and whenever you're doing like a metallic surface, you can really spend all day on it if you want. There's so much you can do with that surface, as far as making it shine and pop. Um, I didn't go as far as maybe I would normally go on this one. I, I realized that with this drawing, most of the time you're going to be seeing his full body, which means it's going to be zoomed out anyway. So, um, you know, you're not going to see that much detail while it's zoomed out of it. Um, Otherwise, I mean, really, with rendering anything, whether it's a painting or whether it's traditional or digital, more or less with digital, like you have to know the I don't know, I guess the typical aspect ratio that it's going to be viewed at, because it's a little ridiculous to put a bunch of detail into something that's going to get lost. It's definitely a rule of thumb when you're doing comic books. I mean, if you work that way, fine, knock yourself out with the detail. But me, I kind of have like a keep it simple, stupid method to my artwork, and it's mostly because I want to draw more than just one thing. I want to. I get very bored quickly while I'm working on a piece. So I know, like, okay, if I don't finish this drawing within such and such hours, I'm probably gonna lose all my motivation working on it. So I have to keep it simple. I've got to, there's nothing wrong with cutting corners here and there. Um, you just have to pick your spots where to do it. Some drawings you can't cut corners at all, because that's what makes the drawing, is just how tight and well thought out it is. Other times, I mean, you can take some liberties. Um, and if you're like me, I just like to draw a lot. I like different subject matters. I don't like drawing the same thing over and over and over again. So I like to move on to different things. And life isn't always accommodating of that time wise. So um, you got to strike while the iron's hot. My girlfriend, I think she's still getting used to how I'll wake up pretty early and just break out my laptop and just start working. And that's because strike while the iron's hot, you know. Um, I know I won't. You don't get. You only get so many quiet times or times where you can really zone out into whatever it is that you're doing, and so you have to do it. You have to take those chances while you have it. Um, so for me, it's weird because I used to be a nighttime artist. I used to, when I was younger, I would just stay up all night and draw, and now it's kind of the reverse. I'll get up in the morning. If I'm most of my artwork that I do anymore, it's done in the morning before I go to work, and part of that's because I work late now, so I work in the evenings. Um, so all my art time is usually between 7 and 10 in the morning. Um, but it's amazing how much you can get done within that amount of time if you just work on it every day. And the very last finishing touch, putting in his blonde highlights. You'll notice it's really intense right here. I actually went back. You'll see it as soon as you see the finished drawing. I actually had to go back and tone it down a little bit. It was looking just a little too obvious. I wanted it to look a little more natural. Um, but yeah, you'll see that here in a moment. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video, especially if you made it all the way through. And I will have more videos coming up here very soon. If you like what you saw, please rate, comment, subscribe to Rivers Art. And until next time, take it easy.